There is a version of you, 10 years from now, that regrets everything. Not because you failed, but because you never fully tried. The most dangerous future is not chaos. It is comfort. It is the slow decay you never noticed. Tonight, we are talking about the future you should fear before it becomes your reality. Most people fear dramatic futures. They fear collapse. They fear betrayal. They fear sudden failure. But Machiavelli would warn you of something far more dangerous. A slow decline you do not notice. The future you should fear is not destruction. It is gradual erosion. Not the storm that knocks you down, but the comfort that makes you weak. Look closely at human nature. Very few people ruin their lives in one dramatic mistake. Most drift into mediocrity through small, repeated compromises. They delay discipline. They tolerate disrespect. They postpone ambition. They silence intuition. Not once, but daily. And slowly, without realizing it, they become smaller versions of themselves. Machiavelli understood that power is rarely stolen. Suddenly, it is surrendered gradually. A ruler does not lose control in a single night. He loses it through neglected structure, weakened vigilance, and misplaced trust. Your life operates the same way. The future you should fear is the one where you become comfortable with less. You stop challenging yourself. You trade growth for ease. You accept what once would have been unacceptable. Psychologically, humans adapt quickly. If your standards lower slowly, your mind will justify it. What once felt below you becomes good enough. And good enough is the birthplace of decay. Decay does not announce itself. It whispers. It tells you to rest when you should rise. It tells you to wait when you should move. It tells you to stay silent when you should speak. The terrifying part? You won't feel like you're failing. You'll feel fine. And that is the danger. Because when decline feels comfortable, you stop fighting it. Machiavelli's vision was clear. Vigilance preserves power. Complacency destroys it. The future you should fear is not visible from a distance. It looks ordinary. It feels safe. It promises ease. But it quietly steals your potential. No one wakes up and decides to ruin their future. Self-destruction is rarely dramatic. It is subtle, rational, gradual. Machiavelli observed that decline begins the moment vigilance relaxes. When leaders grow comfortable, when they assume stability is permanent, decay has already begun. The same principle governs your life. Psychologically, humans normalize repetition. If you skip discipline once, your mind protests. If you skip it twice, it negotiates. If you skip it 10 times, it rewrites your identity. You are no longer someone who missed a day. You become someone who isn't consistent. This is how identity erodes. The future you should fear is the version of you that slowly lowers standards, not because you lack ability, but because you lack urgency. Comfort is powerful. It sedates ambition. When life becomes manageable, growth feels optional. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow. I'm still young. There's time. Time feels abundant until it isn't. Machiavelli understood that power must be maintained daily. It cannot be preserved through intention alone. Structure must be reinforced continuously, or forces of decay take over. In modern psychology, this is called passive drift. When you do not actively design your life, you unconsciously accept default outcomes. You drift into average health, average income, average discipline, average relationships. Not because you aimed for average, because you stopped aiming at all. The terrifying part of passive drift is that it feels stable. You're not failing. You're just not advancing. And stagnation, over years, becomes regression. Every ignored habit compounds. Every delayed decision multiplies. Every tolerated weakness deepens. The future you should fear is the one where you realize too late that you traded years for comfort. Where your potential becomes memory. Where your ambition becomes nostalgia. Machiavelli would warn you, fortune favors the vigilant, not the comfortable. Decay is patient. It waits for your discipline to relax. And once your standards drop, rebuilding becomes harder than maintaining ever was. The question is not whether you will change. The question is whether you will change intentionally or by neglect. Comfort is not the enemy. Attachment to comfort is. Machiavelli observed that rulers fall not when they are attacked, but when they believe they no longer can be. The moment you feel secure enough to relax your standards, decline quietly begins. Ambition dies slowly. It does not disappear in one decision. It fades in small negotiations. Today doesn't matter. This is good enough. I deserve a break. And breaks turn into patterns. The comfortable trap is dangerous because it feels justified. You convince yourself that stability equals success. You mistake maintenance for progress. But stability without growth becomes stagnation. And stagnation, over time, becomes weakness. Psychologically, the human brain is wired to conserve energy. It prefers familiarity over challenge. Once you reach a level where life feels manageable, your mind resists pushing further. Why strive harder when things are fine? Because fine is temporary. Machiavelli understood that power must expand or it contracts. There is no permanent neutral position. If you are not strengthening your skills, your discipline, your resilience, they are weakening. Life does not pause with you. While you rest in comfort, someone else is building. While you hesitate, someone else is sharpening. The future you should fear is the version of you that chose comfort when you had the chance to choose growth. It is not about overworking. It is about remaining sharp. Comfort becomes dangerous when it removes urgency. Urgency is not panic. It is awareness. It is the quiet understanding that your time is limited, your energy is finite, and your potential demands movement. Without urgency, your standards soften. Without standards, your identity weakens. Without identity, direction disappears. And when direction disappears, you drift. Drifting feels peaceful at first, until you realize you are far from where you intended to be. Machiavelli would say this: fear the season where nothing challenges you, because challenge refines you. Ease dulls you. The comfortable future is not catastrophic. It is average. And for someone capable of greatness, average should be terrifying. There is a future version of you watching. Not judging. Not speaking. Just observing. And that version knows what you avoided. Machiavelli understood the power of foresight. A wise leader does not wait for collapse before acting. He anticipates consequences before they arrive. Most people, however, live only in the present emotion. They act for comfort now. They postpone discipline now. They silence ambition now. And they leave consequences for later. The future you should fear is not failure, it is regret. Regret is heavier than defeat. Defeat teaches. Regret haunts. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Not richer, not sharper, not stronger, just older. Same excuses. Same habits. Same postponed dreams. Time passed, but you did not move. That is terrifying. Psychologically, humans underestimate long-term cost. We discount future pain in exchange for present ease. This is why we procrastinate, overindulge, avoid difficult conversations, and tolerate situations that shrink us. Your mind prioritizes immediate relief over future growth. Machiavelli would warn, short-term comfort often leads to long-term weakness. And weakness compounds. The version of you that regrets everything is not the one who failed trying. It is the one who never tried fully. The one who knew they were capable but chose safety. The one who felt potential but ignored it. The one who waited for perfect timing that never came. Regret grows quietly. It accumulates in small moments. When you could have spoken but stayed silent. When you could have acted but delayed. When you could have disciplined yourself but chose distraction. Each moment feels small. But over years, they become identity. The most painful realization is not, I failed. It is, I could have been more. Machiavelli valued vision because vision creates urgency. When you see the consequences of inaction clearly, comfort loses its appeal. The future you should fear is the one who whispers, you knew, and you did nothing. If there is a future you should fear, there is also a future you can build. Machiavelli did not teach fear for paralysis. He taught fear for preparation. The purpose of vision is not anxiety, it is alignment. Once you recognize the danger of slow decay, passive drift, and comfortable mediocrity, the solution becomes clear. Discipline. Not extreme discipline. Not obsessive control. But daily, intentional structure. Discipline is the shield against erosion. It protects your standards when motivation fades. It protects your identity when comfort tempts you. It protects your direction when distraction multiplies. The disciplined individual does not rely on feelings to act. They act because action aligns with who they decided to become. That is the difference. Most people act based on mood. The disciplined act based on commitment. Psychologically, identity-based habits are stronger than goal-based habits. When you see yourself as someone who trains, someone who reads, someone who builds, someone who keeps promises, you act accordingly. Machiavelli understood that power rests on structure. Without systems, intention collapses. So ask yourself, what protects your future right now? Do you have routines that sharpen you? Do you challenge yourself consistently? Do you evaluate your progress honestly? Or are you drifting? The future you should fear becomes less terrifying the moment you introduce structure. Small daily standards compound. Reading when you could scroll. Training when you could rest. Speaking truth when you could avoid. Saving when you could spend. These decisions feel minor, but over years, they separate regret from pride. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. When you govern yourself, the future becomes less threatening because you are actively shaping it. Machiavelli's words of vision were not meant to scare the weak. They were meant to awaken the capable. You do not fear the future by imagining disaster. You fear it by recognizing what neglect can create. And then you move differently. You are not shaped by willpower alone. You are shaped by environment. Machiavelli understood that no ruler survives in isolation. The court, the advisors, the army, the culture all influence strength or weakness. A leader surrounded by incompetence eventually declines. Your life is no different. The future you should fear may not come from within you. It may come from around you. Look carefully at your environment. Who do you speak to daily? What do you consume mentally? What behaviors are normalized around you? Psychology confirms this. Human beings adapt to their surroundings faster than they realize. Standards become contagious. So does mediocrity. If everyone around you avoids growth, you will slowly justify stagnation. If everyone around you tolerates chaos, you will slowly normalize dysfunction. Environment silently edits your ambition. Machiavelli would advise choosing alliances carefully. Association shapes reputation, and reputation shapes power. In modern terms, your circle shapes your ceiling. If you are the most disciplined person in your environment, you may feel strong, but you may also stop stretching. Growth requires friction. It requires being challenged. It requires seeing higher standards. It requires exposure to excellence. The future you should fear is the one built inside a small environment. Small thinking, small expectations, small ambition. Because small environments reward comfort, not expansion. Even your digital environment matters. What are you feeding your mind daily? Noise, drama, comparison, or knowledge? Strategy, vision? The mind absorbs patterns. If your environment promotes distraction, your discipline weakens. If your environment promotes growth, your identity strengthens. Machiavelli's vision was clear. Protect your position by strengthening your surroundings. Audit your environment honestly. Does it sharpen you or sedate you? The terrifying future is not always created by your failure. Sometimes it is created by what you tolerated around you. Choose carefully. Because over time, you will resemble your surroundings more than your intentions. There is something more frightening than failure. It is unused potential. Machiavelli believed that power unused eventually disappears. Strength not exercised weakens. Vision not pursued fades. authority not reinforced, collapses. The same is true for you. You were not built only for survival. You were built with capacity. Capacity to think deeper, to build greater, to endure harder, to lead stronger. The future you should fear is not the one where you struggled. It is the one where you settled. Wasted potential does not hurt immediately. That is why it is dangerous. It feels harmless in the present. But over years, it transforms into something heavy. A quiet dissatisfaction, a subtle frustration, a feeling that you were meant for more. Psychologically, humans suffer most when there is a gap between who they are and who they could have been. That gap becomes internal conflict, and internal conflict drains peace. You may achieve comfort. You may achieve stability. You may even achieve moderate success. But if you know you compromised your capacity, peace becomes fragile. Machiavelli would say, "Fortune favors the bold, but only if they act." You cannot expect greatness from hesitation. You cannot expect strength from avoidance. You cannot expect power from passivity. The cost of wasted potential is not public humiliation. It is private regret. It is looking back and realizing you had the intelligence, the opportunity, the time, and you negotiated with fear. The terrifying future is the one where your excuses outlived your ambition, where your distractions consumed your discipline, where your comfort buried your courage. But here is the final truth. You still have agency. The warning exists, so you can choose differently. The future you should fear is not predetermined. It is constructed daily. And every decision, every small act of discipline, every refusal to drift, every choice to sharpen instead of soften, pushes that feared future further away. Vision is not meant to scare you. It is meant to wake you up. If this teaching shifted your perspective, subscribe to this channel for more lessons in psychology, philosophy, and self-mastery. Fear the right future. Then build the better one.